Hello, my name is Sigala, and today we will talk about human trafficking. And we will also talk about how the making of movies on human trafficking has changed the view on what it really is and what the reality is. I will start with the fact about human trafficking. 4.1 million people are trafficked for forced labor and in-state imposed forced labor. It is estimated that 2.9 million people are trafficked worldwide. Human trafficking is such a dangerous crime that movies depict it in a different way. It is usually worldwide. It targets minorities. It has many forms. Victims are placed in the sex industry, and it is nationwide. We will first depict how human trafficking are in movies. Human trafficking is so much more different than how movies depict it from. The way that the media and movies portray human trafficking usually shies from the reality of it. It's sometimes glorified as if they were to be kidnapped and someone would save them, but most human trafficking cases, victims usually never get found. And in my PowerPoint, you will see the many movies on how they portray human trafficking, one of them being Taken. Now we're going to talk about human trafficking worldwide. It usually targets women and children, and usually it ranges from many different races and ages. From what it seems, women from a different demographic usually are the ones who get trafficked the most. And in my PowerPoint, you will see stats on human trafficking around the world. Now we're going to talk about human trafficking in minorities. Minorities are usually the ones who go missing, and because they are minorities, they get little to no recognition or attention. Most of these cases are children, and they usually never get found, and because they are children and of that minority, human traffickers have a higher chance of them kidnapping them. And in my PowerPoint, you will see the percentages of each race on them being trafficked around the world. Now we will talk about human trafficking and the many forms it has. Now technology has improved, and human traffickers found various ways to lure them. And one of them is usually a man who passes as a teenage boy so that the victim does not get suspicious. And in my PowerPoint, you will see the many different forms that it takes. Now we will talk about the sex industry in human trafficking. Most of them are usually young children and young women, with a low percentage of young men that get turned into the sex industry. It is greater for sex trafficking than human trafficking to happen when you're a woman. Most human traffickers trade people in a discreet way that the police have a hard time. And in my PowerPoint, you will see the stats on women versus the men. Lastly, we will talk about human trafficking in the United States. Usually a lot minorities get human trafficked, with a low percentage of white people that get human trafficked, of course. And we do have the resources for them to be found, but it is sometimes very low. Now, human trafficking, it is worldwide. It targets minorities. It has its many forms. Victims are placed in the sex industry and it is nationwide. And the reality of it, many get human trafficked. It is nationwide and it is worldwide. And there is a small percentage that gets saved and return home safely. But it's very, very small. And the most common states that get human trafficked are Texas, Florida, New York, and in California. And it's here in the United States. And this is all for my speech on human trafficking. Thank you very much.